what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to you a bit about pressures on European water resources from the European perspective, so try and get the overview, and then we're going to go on to the detail will come through the talks today. So I hope you find this interesting overview. No, it's not working. Okay. So just before we do that, I'm going to note, you may not be so familiar with the European Environment Agency. We're an executive agency of the EU. We have a membership of obviously the EU member states, but also we have members, the EFTA countries. Turkey's a member, and then we have cooperating countries down in the West Balkans. So we actually have 38 countries, and we're trying to gather data and information from all of them. So we have quite a big spread over Europe. And our role is to sort of work with countries, knowledge co-creation, so we gather knowledge and countries give us knowledge about what's going on there, and we try to get it together in a comparable fashion over to get a European overview. And that helps to inform policy implementation and then helps us to assess systemic challenges. So state of water. So state of water is our shorthand name for our big report every 6 years on water in Europe. The timing's based on the Water Framework Directive reporting, so that should have happened in March 2022, but it's still kind of going on. But actually, it's not just our report is not just on the WFD reporting. The report isn't out yet, that's why I haven't seen it. But it's based on a lot of information that countries send us. A lot of that is legislative, so we're required to. So in the blue hexagons we've got here, we've got the reporting we get already. So there's Water Framework Directive, we've got urban wastewater, floods, bathing water directives, and we've got WISE SOE, and this is the data we get from countries, from our whole IONET, those member countries. And that's data, so it's concentrations, it's water resources and things like that. So, and this data we make as much public as possible, so it's there on the website. You can see some green hexagons there. These are new data flows that are coming to the EEA. So the nitrates directive, although it's an old directive, it's 1991, EEA is now responsible for collecting information. So that's the first time this year is the first reporting we're getting on that. The Drinking Water Directive and the Water Reuse Directive, they're new directives, or the versions we've got now. They're new in 2020, and they're coming. We're also working on those. And then we've got a policy area. The orange one, that's the water scarcity and drought. Now, Zoltan's already mentioned how important that area is. There isn't actually legislation we have reporting on that at the moment, but that's a policy area that's very important to us and to everybody in Europe. And then I've got two purple triangles, okay? Well, not triangles, hexagons. On the right-hand side, we've got data collection and reporting. So a very large part of our effort is getting information from countries and getting it in a format that we can get it out again in comparable level, so we can then make understanding of that. And then so that's a big part of our effort. And then WISE Fresh Water, that's our sort of data platform, and that's where you'll see a lot of the data coming out, especially under the Water Framework Directive. A bit closer, yeah. So just to sort of give you a quick update on where we are on the Water Framework Directive, we've had 19 member states who've come in so far. We've got some more coming in, but we've got 19 member states are in so far, and of that, with plus Norway, we've got 3.8 million kilometres squared of the groundwater, and 124,000 surface water bodies have been reported. To get to this point where countries have reported to the EEA, they've been monitoring groundwater at least annually, been monitoring chemicals, they've been doing biological quality. Using that information, they've assessed the status. Is it good status or is it not? And if it's not a good status, they have to assess the pressures. Why is it not a good status? That's what the pressures tell us. Then having done that, they run a consultation. Then the governments have adopted the plans, and then they report electronically to us, and there's 175 tables that involves. So there's a lot of electronic reporting, and then that information has reached the EEA. So countries have done a load of work to get to this point. So thank you to everyone for doing that. Okay, as I say, our report isn't out yet, but we hope within the next month or two it will be made public, and all the data we've got, as much of that as possible, will be made public as well. So what's this reporting tell us? You're not going to see numbers, okay? I can't see numbers today because we haven't published the data yet. I'm going to give you an overview of the main pressures of what's coming through. So here we have the pressures, and on the top banner side, if you like, so along here. This is the surface water pressures, and these are the main groundwater pressures. Okay, so as in the second river management plans, diffuse atmospheric pollution is a major pressure, as is natural flow and physical features. Those of you who are familiar with the WFD will know that, maybe know that as hydromorphology, but we're trying to sort of make it a bit more accessible language. So this is hydro. So these two are the major ones. Okay, so pollution from particularly from energy, coal burning for energy, that's mercury. PAH is polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons from vehicle emissions, but any burning of organic matter. And also we've got brominated flame retardants seem to be coming through for diffuse atmospheric. And then we've got diffuse pollution on the land, if you like, and agriculture is a big source of that, unfortunately. But also we've got things around houses and dwellings not connected to wastewater treatment properly, and runoff from sort of, when the rain comes off and it washes straight into the surface waters. Some pollution still from point sources, but that's easier to control because you've got a pipe from somewhere, you can sort of work out who the owner is, so it's easier to enforce control on point sources. And then the big one around hydromorphology, if you like, dams that destroy the connectivity of the rivers, and also flood protection works and drainage that affects the natural flow of the and the function of the water bodies. We'll get a lot of talks on that later in the next couple of days, so I'm looking forward to learning more about that. And then on the groundwater side, again, it's pollution is the main one, particularly around diffuse pollution from agriculture, but also urban runoff, and again the non-connected dwellings, where you'd be surprised there's quite a serious, still an issue here. And then point source pollution, not so significant to groundwater, to be honest, it's more localised. But then the other main one for groundwater is around abstraction, and that's split between public water supply, so our drinking water, agriculture, and industry. So these are the major pressures, and those of you familiar with the WFD, we would know that those are the main pressures again. That's WFD reporting, okay? That's kind of, if you like, business as usual, all right? But what this misses is the effect of climate change, okay? So climate change impacts of water, I mean, Zoltan mentioned it, we're already seeing quite drastic impacts, and so this is an overlaying issue that affects all our view of water going forward. So this slide tries to show you the sort of overall impacts at a sort of European level. And on the top here, we've got in the Northern Europe and mountain areas, and bottom we've got Southern Europe sort of effects. And then you see the bulk of the slide. This is kind of all over Europe. And obviously some of these effects are more localised, but they're I think you'll be familiar with some of them. Sorry, I'm going to slow down a bit. I realise I'm speaking too fast. Okay, so in Northern Europe, we can imagine that, we can see that there's an increase in mean annual precipitation, but there's also retreat of glaciers and reduced snowfall, and that has impacts downstream, where you're relying on snowfall to feed rivers and hydropower and drinking water. So there's quite important impacts there. In Southern Europe, you've got a slightly different situation going on. You've got a reduction in mean annual precipitation, increased water stress, desertification, and salinity. Okay, so different effects, but very significant. If we look at the physical effects in terms of, we've got increased intensity of rainfall, so more intense rainstorms. Let's get surface water flooding, which we've seen, unfortunately, sea level rise to some extent. But this surface water flooding, we can get stronger erosion and sediment transport, so we're losing our soils, we're getting more exposed environments, and affecting drinking water, and potentially increased concentration of pollutants. Certainly, maybe with this runoff and discharges, we're going to get pollutants carried into waterways quicker by this intense rainfall. On the other hand, with the hotter weather, with the heat waves, more frequent and intense droughts. Okay, so that's doesn't appear to be so much of a prediction now, but it's coming a reality, I'm afraid. We've got increased evapotranspiration, so the hotter weather, so plants are using up more water to grow and maybe drying out quicker. We've got increased salinity of coastal wetlands, lagoons and estuaries through increased evaporation of the fresh water, so then the salt concentration increases. So that means that the same sort of thing for pollutants. If you've got less water but the same quantity of pollutants, the concentration goes up, same amount. So that's, sort of looking rather bleak, I'm afraid. And then just in terms of physical effects, if you've got less water, you'll have less cooling water for thermal plants, less flow for hydropower, maybe less flow for inland navigation. So we saw areas where inland big rivers where the big boats were unable to move down some of the big European rivers. So this is quite a bleak picture. Okay, it's I'm not like I don't like doing doom and gloom too much, but it's pretty bleak and pretty worrying. So just to sort of ram that home a bit, every year water stress is affecting 20% of Europe's territory and 30% of Europe's population. So sort of a key message around this, we talked about resilience at the beginning. Europe urgently needs to improve its resilience and to ensure sustainable freshwater supplies for people and the environment. Okay, this is a really strong message Zoltan referred to at the beginning. This is something that we really have to get into the understanding of not just people like ourselves, but others as well. And this is something that I know the EEA and our colleagues at the DG Environment are also very interested to get across. Think about flood risk. Intense rainfall has already increased in parts of Europe, leading to floods and growing risks. And managing flood risk affordably and sustainably is going to become of increasing importance. Okay, so if you're in one of these flood-prone areas, you will know how expensive and the consequences of these floods are. So what can we do about it? Now what I'm going to show you here is we've got to sort of these slides, we show you what we're trying to do is identify some solutions, and I'm very pleased to see in this conference we're going to hear about actual real solutions as opposed to the sort of conceptual ideas that we've got here. But we've got some proposing solutions, and some of them you'll see the same idea coming back. Okay, so what's happening is you can have win-wins. So something that helps with water scarcity or water retention can also help with biodiversity. All right, so you will see repeated things, but they're at the moment we're thinking about water scarcity and drought, but some of these ideas will come back for other issues. So if you think about natural water retention measures, infrastructure, swales. So swales are where you have, if you've got an urban area, you've got houses or something, or roads, and you have a lower area where the water can drain in. So like a pond that isn't a pond most of the time, it's just a dip, and the water can drain in there so that if you've got an intense rainfall, the rain goes in there and it drains slowly away. That helps to manage the flood risk, but it also helps to allow water recharge the groundwater. Okay, so those sorts of measures can come in, and then you've got the bigger sort of thing around floodplain restoration, all right, and we're going to hear more about that later on. But that floodplain restoration, so it's helping, by doing that, you're trying to reduce floods here, but flood risk, but also helping to retain water in the system, because retaining water in the system where we're getting water scarcity is going to become of increasing importance. We need sustainable farming, again, to hold water, and then thinking about growing less water-intensive species, where if your climate's changing, you can no longer use, and you haven't got so much water, you're going to need to change water species or the crop type to try and adapt to the new environment. Then you come to the sort of more kind of administrative controls around more urban areas or industrial areas around, and also for, if you think of agriculture as an industry in terms of metering, abstraction control and enforcement. So paying for what you get and taking control of that. And then, but not just control on the cost, but saying actually what can we do to save water, to be more efficient in our use of water. And that's often very useful in terms of domestic and industrial uses. If that's still, those sorts of measures aren't going to, you've still got other options, but you need water and there isn't very much of it. We're going to get more into water reuse in terms of from treated wastewater and using that safely, harvesting rainwater, maybe desalination, and then groundwater recharge. And this is getting more, trying to give this more focus as an important area to get. We need a better balance for our groundwater. That the amount being taken out is matching the amount coming in, because if you over abstract groundwater, it's really, you're storing up yourself very long-term problems that take a long time to resolve. Okay, moving to the next if you think about the Water Framework Directive, and so we're just thinking about water quantity and resources. Now if we think more about the chemical status, if you like, and chemical and pollution, the big pressure is around diffuse atmospheric pollution. And this is, it's a long-term problem, because once a chemical is out in the environment and it's been spread across Europe into all sorts of waterways, it's very difficult to do anything about that. You know, it's polluted. If you've got mercury in your lake, I mean, you know, it's there. Same for your rivers. So that's you know, prevention is key. And then, so under the Green Deal, we had the zero pollution ambition, and so to get that for water, because of the number of chemicals currently in use, the number of products in use, it's going to need continued effort to protect the health of people and the environment. And that's basically keeping an eye on what's in the water to work out if there's something that's building up that we really don't want to be there. We missed it with PFAS. Okay, we've missed it. So then another pressure, just to focus on agriculture. So agriculture also affects water resources, but it's a major pressure affecting the quality of surface and groundwaters. We need agriculture, right? We need crops. This is not a farmer bashing thing. We need food. So need changes in farming practices and technology to help still get our food, but also adapt to reduce pollution and lower water use. So addressing pollution pressures. So what can we do? Well, number one is always prevent pollution. All right. With any, you know, under the European Green Deal, there were a lot of activities around sustainable chemistry and quite interesting things about sustainable by design and not using highly polluting substances, but really prevent it anyway. And that includes reducing harmful emissions to air, because once it's in the air and once it's being transported in the air, it's very, you know, you can't control it. So prevent that. And you might do that by using cleaner energy sources. We can certainly do things with urban wastewater, and the revised directive, the proposed revised directive, seeks to reduce pollution further from wastewater treatment. But you can also have less intense approaches. Maybe you've got some land where you can have reed beds, and that adds to the local environment in terms of biological quality, but it's low intensity, so you can get pretty good water quality if you've got a small area that you know, small town or small things, to use reed beds rather than very intensive, expensive water treatment. We need farming. We need to better balance pesticides and nutrient inputs and water inputs with environmental protection. And moving to more sustainable practices will help that. Right, and moving on because of the time. So then coming to sort of more I'm not going to over-egg the restoration type issues, because this conference has got a lot of focus on that. That, you know, we're in a ecological crisis. The biodiversity is in a really bad state. I think it's only 17% of riparian habitats are in a favourable status in Europe. I mean, it's really a poor state. And having a robust and resilient ecosystems is what gives us a good, stable quality of life. If we lose the quality of our environment, then actually everything goes down, because of not just because it's nice to have nature, it's actually the services that good water quality provide us with. So achieving free-flowing rivers and restored wetlands is essential. Okay, and we should be using nature-based solutions more to both to enhance water retention, slow the flow of intense rain, to mitigate flooding, but that also gives us better ecosystem type events. So just to sort of coming to my last main slide here, sort of summarising, you've seen some of these in the other areas, but this in terms of addressing biodiversity crisis, here we are, we're restoring floodplains and wetlands, sediment management activities upstream to reduce the amount of sediment coming in. We're protecting the river basin from pollution, and we're allowing areas, the connectivity and the floodplains to exist more where they can. Obviously, it's difficult in urban areas. Enhance and expand protected areas to better protect our aquatic species and habitats. Obviously, preventing pollution in different ways, and flood mitigation in urban areas, for instance, swales. at the bottom we've got preventive invasive species. We don't go down into a lot, but just to remind ourselves, invasive species, they're coming up in different ways. I see we've got a talk on the Oder River. I mean, that was something that caught was very left field. But that's, I think, we're not quite sure what's going to happen with climate change, but there's some really strange things going on. So just to summarise then, the position is Europe's water is under significant pressure. It's presenting serious challenges to water security, both now and in the future. Europe urgently needs to improve its resilience and ensure sustainable freshwater supplies for people and the environment. Okay, so thank you very much.